Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sydney Jordan. I represent 60A in the Minnesota House, which is Northeast Minneapolis and Southeast Como. And today is a really exciting day. We're going to make sure that Minnesotans have food, which is one of the most elemental things that we need to live our lives. And my bill is House File 5, which will provide universal breakfast and lunch to Minnesota school children. It does this by enrolling students, or not enrolling students, but enrolling schools that are already participating in the National School Meals Act into a universal school meals program. And so it will maximize federal funding and then cover the difference to make sure that no child is going hungry in Minnesota schools, which is unfortunately a reality for 1 in 6 Minnesota school children. And what's more is while we do have some meal programs already, 1/4 of hungry kids in Minnesota schools do not qualify for those programs. And so with this bill, this will ensure that every child has the tools, breakfast and lunch, to succeed in school. With next, I would like to invite Colleen Moriarty, who's the Executive Director of Hunger Solutions, to talk more about House File 5 and the impact it'll have on Minnesota families.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Both of these bills that we're going to talk about today are crucial to the health and vitality of our state, the children and the families who live here. We topped almost 6 million visits to food shelves this year, which is almost a 2 million increase from the year before. We issued a report yesterday about that. And school meals is a basic right. We have had numerous bills on lunch shaming. We have struggled with this for years. We have looked at, Governor Dayton looked at the fact that we should have reduced meal prices eliminated for kindergarten. We've tried a lot of strategies. We need to follow the pace of leadership in our country, which over 11 states are considering these kinds of bills, and we have had the leadership of 2 of our brightest representatives and senators. I want to thank them for their constant attention to this, and I want to thank the people of Minnesota for receiving this so well. Thank you.
Hello all, Representative Heather Keeler, District 4A, Moorhead. I'm here to talk about House File 213, which is a very simple bill. It's an emergency funding bill for $5 million to the food shelf program. We know that many of our food shelves are days, maybe weeks away from actually having to close and not be able to provide the food that by statute we're supposed to be able to require to give. A couple data points that I just want to highlight, because we know that scientifically, it's a scientific fact that if you're hungry, you're just not able to do all the things that your body is designed to do. But we know that 1 in 12 of our neighbors is experiencing food insecurities. As my time working in the schools, I knew this firsthand. But the interesting part about that, so 1 in 8 kids don't have access to food, but the individuals who are utilizing food shelves, 1/3 of them are actually brand new to utilizing this service, which tells us that it's a brand new population that is needing these supports. Also, 60 plus, our elders are a new population that's actually growing in the need in this area as well. So though Representative Jordan's bill is focused on feeding kids in the schools, my bill is focusing on feeding the communities in which those kids reside in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. My name is Brad Tabke from Shakopee, House District 54A, and today we're going to talk. My part of the program today is about pollinators, and so without pollinators, we would not have any food throughout the state of Minnesota. And so we have the Lawns to Legumes program, which is an extraordinarily popular program throughout the state of Minnesota. There have been over 17,700 applicants in the last couple of years since it started with Representative Kelly Morrison in 2019, and when she passed that bill at that time. And so of those 17,700, over 12,000 of them have not been funded. And so these are cost-sharing grant programs to plant more native plants and pollinator gardens throughout the state of Minnesota. So this program will put $2 million this year and $2 million into the next year, and into native plants and a cost-sharing program that's been working really well throughout the state. So I'm excited to bring this forward today and have a vote on it. And then majority lead along.
Thank you all. So we have some really great bills up today to make sure that we're feeding Minnesotans. And I just wanted to speak very briefly to Representative Jordan's bill and the efforts around making sure that all school kids have food. I have a kindergartner myself who's in public school, and has memorized his little code that he has to punch in every day so that he can get his school meals. And we know that a lot of his classmates, thankfully not my son, but a lot of his classmates face real food insecurity. And it makes all the sense in the world that when we have free public education, we know that a critical part of being ready to learn, learning well, is being well fed. And so that is a part and parcel of having a good education system. And I just want to thank Representative Jordan for bringing this forward. Estimates are this could be $800 to $1,000 per family in terms of their overall savings for their meals that they're putting forward for their school children every year. And with that, we'll open it up to questions from the audience.
Can Representative Jordan, can you explain the cost-sharing agreement between the state and the federal government? Because it seems like it's changed a little bit. So, what about schools that don't have kids that are enrolled in the federal program right now?
Well, if the school is not participating in the National School Meals Bill, in the National School Meals Program, they're not enrolled in universal meals. And so I have not heard of a public school in Minnesota that is not enrolled in this. And so I'm sure if I jinx myself and say every single one is, though someone will come up with one. But for every charter school, traditional public school, and even some parochial or private schools that do participate in this, then they will be part of the Universal Meals Program. So if they're not already in the National School Meals program, then they will not be part of the Universal Meals Program. And so schools that are already participating in subsidized federal meals will now be part of this program. Schools that qualify for CEP, which stands for the Community Eligibility Provision, you might also hear it referred to as SEP by some folks. The schools that are enrolled, who qualify for CEP will then be enrolled in the CEP program if they are not already enrolled there. Currently, if a school is in a neighborhood with an ISP of 62.5%, they would qualify for CEP, which would provide universal meals from the federal government. For schools that are not eligible for CEP, they would still continue to receive the federal subsidy that already exists for breakfast after the bell and for lunches, and then the state would be responsible for the remainder. So if the federal government changes the ISP from 62.5 to something that would be more inclusive, the bill is designed to capture more money from the federal government if they provide that in the future.
So in theory, there are some schools that, already have the universal lunch because of that CEP program. So the state plugging the gap wouldn't be for a school like that. It would be for those other schools.
Correct.
Does the school have to offer both breakfast and lunch to qualify? And are there schools out there that are only offering one meal a day?
Yes, this program would provide universal lunch and breakfast.
But they're required to do both in order to unlock this money?
Correct. And schools in Minnesota that are participating in the National School Meals Program will automatically be in, so all schools will be in this program from MDE, and then all schools will be providing universal breakfast and lunch as long as they are. And so again, remember, this is only for schools that are already enrolled in the National School Meals Program.
So does that mean that a family still has to fill out the paperwork?
No.
Okay, so you're going off of previous data of schools that were enrolled?
So the way CEP is not calculated using free and reduced price lunch forms. And so CEP is an innovation from the federal government that gets us away from these forms. CEP is calculated by using the community around the school to determine poverty. And so CEP has no relationship with free and reduced price lunch forms. And so this bill is also a way to get away from having schools collect those forms, parents filling them out, kids remembering to take them out of the bottom of their backpack. All of that will be part of this bill as well.
And just to be clear, this is the meals that fit the nutritional requirements. It's not the a la carte, the student goes up and buys the cookies or the sweet treats.
Correct. So this is currently under federal, there are many federal guidelines about what goes into a meal that is provided to a student at school. There are numerous requirements ranging from how much calcium is in a meal to how much added sugar or added sodium is in a meal. There's plenty of federal guidelines. And so this would be reaching the federal guidelines that take into account the nutrition set by USDA or the Department of Agriculture. who sets those guidelines around school meals. And so this isn't a Gatorade for all bill. This is a meals for all bill. And so if a student wants to purchase a Gatorade, for example, they could still do that, but that would be not provided by the state. Furthermore, students, of course, can still continue to bring their lunch from home.
What's the price tag now?
The price tag just escaped. Let me pull it up. Does someone have it on it?
It's,
Is it like 380 million?
and then
For
the
this
next year it
biennium.
goes up to 411,
For the biennium.
For the biennium.
right,
One more time, 388 for the biennium for this coming 2 school years.
right.
And is it higher, wasn't it 190, wasn't it 190 million a year? And is the higher price tag because breakfast is in now, or?
No, I think that the calculations are done, this is my understanding of how the fiscal note was established, is that the calculations are done assuming that there would be a certain level of participation in the CEP. The National School Lunch Program is available all over the country and started in 1948. And there is one school district in the state of Minnesota who does not use the National School Lunch Program.
Who are they? Come on, name them.
Wayzata.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So,
Okay,
so
go ahead.
every school, well, I guess maybe not the parochial schools you can't account for, but you're saying one public.
They're in the National School Lunch Program too.
So you're saying the only school in the whole state that is not a part of this is Wayzata
The only
District?
school district that does not participate in the National School Lunch Program is Wayzata.
In terms of how this is administered, is this going to be easier on schools? They're going to have to do less paperwork, more
Yes.
paperwork, or?
Yes.
Explain how it's easier.
It's streamlined. And people don't get into the nutrition business in schools because they want to police kids. They want to feed children. So what it eliminates is it eliminates the paperwork of carrying debt, with the exception of someone who is, voluntarily bringing up debt that they're personally responsible for, but that doesn't have anything to do with the federal programs.
Does this bill answer the concerns of some school administrators and school boards about the not having those forms to calculate the additional funding certain districts with high populations of students with free and reduced lunch get? There's like a special fund.
Right, the compensatory aid. And that form is under consideration for revision too, and has needed to be for years. It's always been an inaccurate way of measuring poverty to have free or reduced lunch be the determinant factor. So it really, uncoupling those forms, which many states all over the country have already done, because it's inaccurate, is a much better way of looking at students' need for nutrition.
So to be clear, there's a separate proposal, or will be, on that issue?
I believe it's being
It has
worked
been
on.
introduced today.
Okay, so it's not in this bill, okay.
So your new compensatory aid,
And the other, 1 minute though, the other thing that is important to remember though is that 90% of students who qualify for free and reduced lunch are now receiving that through the MA match. And so because of a data sharing between MDE and DHS, schools are receiving more compensatory aid this year than they have previously because of this data sharing and because of the MA write-off. And so compensatory aid is up because of this new area. We're working on making sure that compensatory aid is decoupled from these forms, which again are an inaccurate measure of poverty and need for nutritional aid or other sorts of aid that a school might generate. And so that is being worked on. I know also that it is something that is a priority of our education committees, the Senate's education committees, and the governor.
okay. For those of us who are acronym challenged, MA mean, you're talking about that using Medicaid numbers to.
Correct.
To try to
Yep.
measure poverty
Medi-
for an area.
Folks who qualify for medical assistance.
These are now in 2 separate bills. You're not going to have it in
The MA is already in practice in Minnesota schools, and so the compensatory aid formula is in a separate bill.
Okay, that's not something that the DOE could just do administratively, the ledge has to adopt that?
The formula is set in state statute, and it is the legislature that determined that these forms were how they would calculate this. And so it is the legislature's responsibility to come up with a better way to make sure that schools get the funding they need, and also to make sure that kids do not go hungry. The fact that we are relying on these forms is a problem, because that means that children are not receiving the food that they need to learn.
There's still 3.5 months of this school year. There had been some talk earlier about getting some of this money out the door still in this academic year. Is that just too big of a challenge?
So incorporated within my bill is assistance to the Minnesota Department of Education to get going for that program so that they can launch for summer school on July 1st, work out kinks in summer school, and then be ready to go to make sure that every child has breakfast and lunch for the start of the 2023 school year.
Sorry to belabor this point, but just for clarity, you talked about the CEP being kind of a more innovative way to determine school lunches. Is that to say the CEP is separate from the free and reduced lunch formula, or is it just?
CEP is a federal program and is separate from the other federal subsidies. It's a way of calculating universal meals for sites. So it is a separate program from the National School Meals Program and also other subsidies that come from the federal government.
One more question.
No, we can take several more questions. We're trying to understand this bill.
So just to be clear, so you're saying under this bill, every school has to.
Sorry, Peter, I can't hear. Sorry,
Every
I
school
can't
has
hear.
to enroll in the CEP regardless.
That is qualified for CEP.
So what about the schools that don't qualify for CEP?
Then the state will pick up the difference between the federal subsidies and the cost of the universal meal.
Okay.
If I could just add one thing, and the CEP is a way to enroll the whole school in a meals program when the level of poverty reaches a certain rate. So it eliminates the paperwork. It is added on to the National School Lunch Subsidy, which every student gets. And it allows the entire school to have universal meals.
So this bill plugs the difference for those schools that don't already get universal.
So it's a patchwork. National School Lunch Program, base subsidy. CEP, another subsidy that allows everyone to eat, and then the state funding on top of that. The reason we're doing that is because we want the state to make an affordable, have an affordable bill that people can understand. So it's really just three levels. Base national school lunch, CEP for schools that can qualify for it, and every school that qualifies for it must use CEP, and then the state subsidy.
Representative Keeler, as long as you're there, your bill does have an immediate infusion, that $5 million. Can you put that in context? What does the state spend now on these emergency food shelves, and talk about the number of meals that, or families that might get served with the additional money?
I think right now the current funding is 1.96 million. And so we know just with the combination of the cost of eggs and milk going up dramatically, and many people then now having this new, we have a third of the population that's utilizing shelves are brand new. So I think it's just a combination of where we are to fill the end of the gap. I know when we looked at the numbers from last year, we were up almost
5.5 million.
million new users. So this is really just the end. If you look at statute tells us that every food shelf is required to give either 6 pounds or 2 days worth of food. And so to be able to continue at that rate, at the cost of where our food and all the other things that they need are at right now, that's where that dollar amount came
Is there
in.
a sense as to how many families wouldn't get served if this additional money doesn't come through? Like how many families is this $5 million supporting?
We don't measure things in terms of families, we measure things in terms of visits. So we have an idea of what the percentages go up and down for the numbers of people visiting food shelves. But I can tell you that, in 2008, we thought the dip was dramatic. It's just, we've never seen people visiting food shelves like they are now. And so it's not, I'm sure that there's a tendency for everybody to say, oh, there's no food on the shelves, but if there is food on the shelves, it's difficult to be able to afford to get it there. People can't afford to buy their own food, and the only recommendation that national groups are giving after the loss of the emergency status in March is for people to go visit a food shelf. And if there is no food at the food shelf, that's a crisis.
I guess one of the questions I have is, it's more expensive for people to go to their grocery stores. It's probably more expensive for the food shelves to obtain their supplies too. So is the current money not going as far? Is that part of the issue?
Right. It's always been a great unmet need, and the money isn't going as far, and just gaining access to the kind of foods that families need is more and more expensive, just like it is for everyone who goes to the grocery store.
Do you have numbers compared to when, during COVID, you had universal meals in schools,
Yes,
and then it stopped?
right.
What's the difference between how many meals were being served when everyone got a meal, and how many meals are being served this year when those people dropped off?
I don't have that in front of me.
See the numbers of people, of kids, who are going to benefit by going back to universal. Nobody has that?
Well, I'm sure the Department of Education does, but I don't have that. But here, I think one of the determining factors you see in this food shelf increase is a result of the fact that the supports were there, are not there now. Those have peeled off, and it leaves not just school children, but whole families in a more precarious position, which leads them to the food shelf, which now is going to be the only source. So we have to be ready.
Representative Jordan, I have a question. Is the free meal available to a student, and forgive me if I didn't quite catch it in all the conversation? Is the free meal going to be available to a student who neither is whatever you said,
CEP.
and the federal program? Like if it's just a little kid who's a working family, who's not qualified, doesn't have any special qualifications, but can that kid get?
To be clear, every child who attends a Minnesota school that participates in the National School Meals Program will receive a breakfast and a lunch at no cost to them.
And that clarification, that doesn't mean they're poor, it's just the national meal program.
No, that doesn't mean, it doesn't say anything about that family. It just says that a kid is going to school, and we're going to give them the tools they need to succeed in school, and that means food.
All lunches are subsidized at some level.
And is breakfast, is it gonna be an extra kind of, not hassle, but, if more and more kids want to come to breakfast, you expect there to be a big surge?
We do expect an uptake in food, in meals being served, and for calculating that, that's why I'm so excited to have the support of the Minnesota School Nutrition Association and SEIU Local 284, who represent the people whose job it is to calculate, to provide these meals. They're the ones who figure out what the menus need to be, who serve the food, who cook the food, who determine what day is French toast stick day and what day is taco day. It's probably Tuesday, but these are the people whose job it is to figure this out. They're supporting this, and they're confident that they can make sure that every child receives breakfast and lunch.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.